So it's time to properly get back and work on the Herald. I've got the bulkhead positioned. I'm happy with it. I'm convinced I've not made some horrendous mess. I've worked out I don't think this gap was ever very good in the first place, so I understand why the bonnet won't move where I was imagining it should move. So when I skin this door, or replace this door actually, I can either adjust the skin where the skin's going to sit, or extend this front edge, or something along those lines to make this a little bit neater. Anyway, what that means is the welding at the front of the bulkhead can get done, and I can start working down on the rear edge to make sure that the kind of outer edges of the bulkhead will line up with the rear sills. So I'm going to get the doors off and the body covered up, and then start working on that fit. So we've got the car moved out and covered up. There's a couple of things that need looking at. So when I was doing the adjustments, I noticed that I'm not sure if this join is still intact. So I'm going to get all that cleaned up and weld those two bits back together if I need to. It's also looks like the bonnet cone plate dropped a little bit at the back, which would kind of support the idea that it's not really been joined properly here. Though you can also see this is a bit distorted, so straighten that out. I need to do something about these. So this appears too low relative to the rear of the car. I'm not sure whether, so with the new shims I got, the body mounting kit, was much thicker shim that went under here than the one that came. So I'm wondering if that's what's up. Anyway, so I'll have a play about with that. I may need to start cutting bits up. On the other side, it's a similar story here. I need to figure out if it's quite possible with the amount of work I've done getting the floor pans joined in that I've just not got this back in the right place. I've got to figure that out. And I've also noticed this here, there's a dent in at the rear of the door hinge, so I'm going to stick a bolt in the hinge plate and try and use it as a dolly to bring this out a little bit. Once we've figured out what to do with these edges, well, if we have to cut these, we'll probably have to take it off to get the welding complete as well. We've got that bit in the footwell to finish off. And yeah, right, let's get started then. So these are what came off the car. This is the rearmost body mount on the bulkhead. They came off the car. These are the new replacements. So I mean, it's not surprising this rubber is compressed to nothing, because you know, I think it probably is. It was the same on both sides, and I would, given the state of the bolts on the passenger side, I would be surprised if, now they will have been off because the outrigger has been replaced, but they've not been off in a very long time. They're completely rotted through. Anyway, so I would be surprised if this is not the original shim, and that's not the original bit of rubber. So you can see the replacement one is considerably thicker, and as is the rubber, but you know, I would have expected, you know, compression over many years. And that's why I didn't use it before. But maybe it's what I need to try and raise this back end. I don't think so though. I think what I've done is kind of tip this back while fitting in the floor. But I'm going to try and see what happens. I suspect it's going to just mess up all the alignment I've been playing with, but I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. I've been trying to avoid making this into another video where I fiddle with the panel gaps, but putting the thicker shim underneath the rear body mounts closed this up a bit, which is actually good. It's brought this up closer, and it's made those are actually so the rear floor is not sitting on these spacers anymore. I'm feeling like it's probably not the right move. Because I had to jack, you probably saw, I had to jack this up and kind of force it a bit more than I really like to actually get that spacer in. So I think I'm going to go back and actually cut this bit of, make a relief cut somewhere so I am actually be able to move this relative to the inner floor pan and then weld it back together. Well, I'm still having to think, so what I'll do now is go over to the other side and deal with the bracket that the bonnet cone sits on and see if that's become detached and put it back if it has. So I grabbed myself out a bit of a ground away a bit of the metal at the back to give me room to get a plug weld in. I think worked alright, but I've got just put a couple of bits on the edge too, just to stop it being able to flex. I'm going to have to clean this up, but at the moment I've got to go and put some guttering up instead. So I'll be back in a bit. There's that cleaned up. Now I'm still not sure what to do about this area. If you look from the top, it looks like this is further. I mean, from here and here, it looks like this has somehow gone further in. But then it could also be that this was never straight, or never parallel to the outside of the car. Same on the other side. Wow, this looks like it's gone further in. But then I also noticed this sill it's a bit wobbly too. Well, not sill, what tread plate, these are tread plates. So I'm just not sure what to do. I'm going to have to think about it again. I'll be back. Well, I've done a lot of playing again. Finding various straight edges. Measuring this, that and the other. And finally trying to fit the sills. So I found out that this passenger side, the tread plate is parallel to the chassis, and the distance back to the chassis is similar to the distance to the edge of this, and the sill fits. On the driver's side, this tread plate is really not parallel to the chassis, and I can't get the sill on. And now the sill would suggest, funnily, that the front of the bulkhead is too low. Look at that. I think I agree. My chassis repair's not done very well there. No, I know I measured this and got it. Anyway. Oh, making a mess of this thing. That's much better. Okay. Well, that's obviously not wonderful. However, I just want to remove the shim there. That'll counteract. Well, it looks like it's. Can't show that with one hand. Looks like the top edge of the chassis is straight. Oh, something's wrong. Just keep going till I figure out what. So, more playing about, I started to look at what was level. And the tread plate is high at this end. On the other side it's level. Here the chassis is not bashing it, isn't there? See how the chassis looks on it? What am I doing? And here is more or less level. On this rear tread plate, whatever this bit is, part of the bulkhead tread plate thing. And on the other side, these things are all more or less level. So, I wonder if this is actually. Is this wrong? But then this sort of fitted. This fitted before. Anyway, what I'm going to try and do, just as an experiment, is it's shim both sides or both mounts of this up, and see where that goes. Even with the jack under it, I can't quite get it high enough to get these in. These are quite chunky anyway. So I'd like to try dropping this tread plate down. So that feels like it's actually right. However, I'm going to struggle to get it. Well, this bolt is not cooperating, doesn't want to come out. But also I don't know what the consequence for the door fit's going to be, because if we drop down this, pull down on the tread plate, it's probably going to bring the B-post forward, which I don't want. I'm going to see if I manage to get the bolt out and try anyway. Now this side clearly did fit before, but I don't think I've dropped it as much as if I'd have bent this. If I'd have bent this bit, which is what I originally thought, if I'd have kind of allowed this to rotate this way while putting the floor in, then it wouldn't all be straight and level, which it seems to be. And this tread plate does bow outwards, come outwards slightly, and does rise upwards slightly. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to try taking them apart. So I changed my mind about trying to get the rear, or the middle, whatever it is, body mount back here off. I instead took one of these new shims, put it under the rearmost bulkhead mount, and then used the thinnish original shim on the front, or the front corner mount. And that got me to a point where I get the sill on. Now, just be able to, you can maybe. Yeah, if you see here, the holes have been elongated downwards, and what I've only managed to get this. I've only managed to get this self-tapper in at a bit of an angle. So I'm pretty convinced this is telling me I was right, and this tread plate isn't quite good, and that there was a bit of force required to get the sill on before, because these are obviously pointing downwards into holes that are a bit lower than they should be. So I think this might actually be. So obviously the still needs to pull on both ends to get with the tabs that bolt to the chassis rail. So tuck it in. Yeah, so I think I don't want to modify this section. There is a bit of a gap here. It's kind of, it is what it is. I'm not going to cut anything in the rear body. Obviously may do sometime in the future, but I think this is getting to an acceptable point. So what I'm going to have to do now is put this door back on and check whether that's still going to work. Yeah, you can actually see, we've got what's that, 15mm from the body to the outside of the sill. We've got about that at the back, and the middle it's about 10mm. So, and this is all parallel. This will sit parallel to the sill. Sill will sit parallel to the front bulkhead tread plate bit. So I'm leaving this as is, providing the door fits. So let's check that. Yeah, I'm a bit close to the car and it's difficult to see, but I think we are at a point where this can work. That's a bit large, whatever. I think the door needs to come up a bit. But again, this is just making sure that nothing more is needed before kind of committing to the bulkhead as being finished. So I don't think I'm going to do anything on the other side either. They're in a very similar position. The only thing to do really is probably put everything back together again. Yeah, we'll have to check the hood will still close, and it's probably time to call it good eventually. I best put this sill on too, just to check. Okay, well, let's get that done. We'll come back and have a look. So that's looking alright. It'll all go back together. It's all got reasonable. Well, it's not. It's got panel gaps about like it started with, and honestly, I'm happy with that. So the passenger sill will go on, that's fine. Driver's side looking a bit better. There was some pull. There's some tension when I closed this hood bit at the side of the hood. And there is a repair to the header railing here, so, which always made it a little not quite right. And there's probably going to be a little bit more. I might have to get under here and make a slightly thicker shim, because I can, just where we are now, where everything's okay, I can turn these two, the rubber and the metal, which, yeah. So I think making up, or using an extra washer or something to shim that up just that little bit more is going to be a good idea. Because then when this actually gets bolted down, I thought it was bolted down, but clearly not quite. Bottom of the door needs to come out, but anyway, the whole point of this exercise was, I'm still doing that. The whole point of this exercise was to check that we could call the bulkhead done. And aside from finishing off the welding at the front of the floor, where I've had to cut it, it is. I don't think there's anything more I can possibly do. Phew. So I'm going to see how much of this I actually put together. There's lots of footage of me wandering around, being confused, which might actually be helpful, because at least shows people that it is confusing sometimes, and there's lots of places you can make adjustments. Anyway, we'll see what comes out of this, but we're at a position where we can move forward now. And what is the next thing? Well, getting that welding done on the floor. Get the welding done on the floor, and then probably, yeah, get back to the chassis, get back to the front driver's side suspension and the chassis, and check that over. Clean, paint, rebuild, all that sort of stuff. So, thanks for watching. See you later.